Reddit, what things have you done which most of us probably won't believe you did? I fell asleep in my parents' room when I 4-ish. I woke up to my mom crying and police in the room. Apparently they couldn't find me and thought I was missing. Whole neighborhood was searching for me. Little did they know I was sleeping peacefully in my Superman underwear. Threw my keys across the room and landed perfectly on my key rack. I felt so smooth and no one saw me or believes me. I believe you, fam. Watched a run of Bewitched with a burglar who broke into my house. I happened to take a weekday off when I heard someone knocking at the back door of my house in the morning. The backyard is fenced in, there's no reason for anyone to be back there. So I grabbed my pistol and waited outside the kitchen to see what happened. I heard the guy Jimmy open the door, so I walked around the corner and pointed my gun at him. He told me he was looking for his dog. I'm assuming that was the line he'd practiced when he knocked on my back door. I call the police and we sit in the living room waiting. It turns out Miss Manners does not provide etiquette tips for this particular situation. And not wishing to engage in small talk, I turn on the TV. Not much on in the morning. We wait 10 minutes and I call the police again. Wait another 10 minutes and call again. It turns out in the first 2 calls I must have been rather vague and the person taking the call thought I simply wanted to report a burglary. The 3rd call, I said I'm holding a gun on him. Would you please get someone here ASAP? About 5 squad cars showed up around 3 minutes later. A police officer told me that when the person taking the call repeated "you're holding a gun on him," everyone in the room leaped to their feet. When I was a teenager I fenced in Singapore and was ranked 16th nationally. There were only 17 girls competing. One dropped out due to illness. A friend and I found $500 at a dump, just on the ground in loose $100s. It was while we were helping a friend throw out their old stuff. Hey, it's me, your friend. You still owe me $250. During freshman year of college, I was hanging out on the ground floor of the dorm with some friends and one friend hailed an elevator and held the door for us to get in. While walking towards the elevator, I was swinging my carabiner, that had my keys around my finger and it slipped off. The keys went flying and went straight through the opening between the floor and the elevator without touching the ground. We fished it out with a straightened metal clothes hanger. Was in the lift once with someone who dropped his keys down that he didn't get them back though. They fell 13 floors. Freaked me out as I was only like 6 at the time. One time I accidentally gave directions to a guy that I later found out through a call by a detective after, who was actively on the run for an armed robbery that had just occurred. Oops. Banzai kamikaze skydiving. Basically, you throw your parachute out first and then have to chase after it. It's not as horrifying as it first sounds, because you are still tied to the parachute by a long cord. It's just difficult to pull it on and tighten it up properly while you're falling. 2 things, one significantly funnier than the other. A. I killed a fly with a hair tie by shooting it like an elastic. B. My incredibly inebriated friend made a piece of pizza straight up disappear. It was his birthday, so we make pizza at his place. He's a natural born cook, and get drunk as frick. He's not used to his alcohol, however, and gets way more plastered than me and my other friend who was there, who we'll call Lila. So basically he's almost passed out sitting on the kitchen floor. Me and Lila are discussing if we should call his parents. We do, but they won't be home for at least 45 minutes. Either one of them, the drunk one, we'll call Dirk, asks if we're still hungry. Nah Dirk, we're good. Thanks though. Dirk doesn't believe us. So, he chucks a piece of pizza at us. Except it doesn't go at us. It goes in a parabola above us. Now Dirk's house had those curtains that sort of jut out from the wall a bit, by like an inch. Before the actual curtains lay, Dirk's pizza falls in the crack between the wall and the curtain mechanism, and to this day we have not freaking found it. Scored a bicycle kick in a soccer match. I used to be really good and now look at me. No one believed it, but it happened. During an intramural soccer game in which we were playing a team of Brazilian students, I did a Rabona pass and totally faked out the guy trying to take the ball away from me. Being an American who only played soccer for a couple years as a kid, this is one of my greatest sporting accomplishments. I go to college in a different state. I miss my dogs more than I miss my family. Once I missed my dogs so much that I gave 3 wolves in Minecraft a tour of my world and pretended they were my dogs. After 10 minutes of doing this I realized what a lunatic I had become and stopped. What a lunatic I had become and stopped. Don't worry, you were just the average Minecraft player. Taught a Yakuza princess that didn't speak any English, and I barely knew any Japanese, how to use an AK. So in college a good friend of mine, American, was in the international student club at school. So my friends and I would hang out with the international kids because their parties were fantastic. So we had a lot of international student friends, particularly Japanese. Turns out one of the girls is supposedly the daughter of a high-ranking Yakuza boss. Initially I think it's bulls. She's the sweetest girl, always bubbly, nice and polite. She never made this known to me, it was just known in the group. However, I asked some of the other Japanese kids about it and apparently she was in fact the daughter of a Yakuza boss and a few times had flown off the handle while angry and threatened to have people killed. Anyways, I would take them to the gun range since guns are basically illegal in Japan and they loved going. So one day Yakuza girl's younger sister flies in from Japan and is in town and they ask to go to the range while she's there. So I oblige them and teach this girl that doesn't speak English how to use my WASR-10 amongst other firearms. Vlaome. I was terminally ill. Nobody knew what it was. I came up positives for tons of viruses and STDs, including AIDS. They did their best to treat me. Got 1 month away from my organs failing and made a random recovery. Don't have even one of those problems anymore. They believed my body was developing an immunity but was shutting itself down because it had no clue how to be immune. I still have no clue. Basically don't believe it myself. I rigged up a canoe onto a zipline and rode in it with a buddy, and then rappelled out. We were wearing our PFDs and had paddles. I was with my, now ex-wife in a hotel in RI, and we were approaching the front desk to check out. Someone had spilled some M&Ms on the floor, and being a pair of Family Guy fans, I was making her laugh by going, "Oh, piece of candy. Oh, piece of candy." I had been looking at the candy on the ground and I looked up at the front desk. There he stood. Freaking James Woods. He had been watching and listening to me the whole time. He did not look pleased. If true, this might be the best. Answered my house telephone and it was Robert De Niro on the line back in 1996. He said, "Hi, this is Bobby here. I'm looking to speak with John." I said, "There's no John here. Who is this?" He said, "Bob De Niro." I said, "Robert De Niro, the actor." It sounded just like him. He said, "Yes, the actor. I was told I could get John at this number." I said, "There's no John here, Robert. Sorry about that." Then I hung up. 10 minutes later my dad walked into the house with this old dude and he introduced me to him as John. John says to me, "Did Bobby call for me yet?" This was before everyone had cell phones. I said, "Yeah," but I hung up. The old dude was John Voight and I didn't know who the frick he was. It was just before he got famous again for Mission Impossible and Enemy of the State and Anaconda and all those movies. I was a teenager and didn't know crap about Midnight Cowboy or Deliverance. My dad was helping him research a role. I knocked on David Cross tour bus in the alley behind the theater. I saw the show and I was disappointed that there was no merch after, so a friend and I just waited back there for the crowd to disperse and then I knocked. David freaking Cross opened the door and I said, "Feel free to say no, but I was hoping you would sign my jacket." He said, "Well, with balls that big." He came out and talked to my friend and I for about TWN minutes. It was amazing. I couldn't have been happier. TWN. Is this 2 or 10? My friend and I got wasted downtown in a big city, so we called an Uber to go home. We got in a random car which was not an Uber with a guy named Diamond. Diamond actually got us home safe and sound after taking us to a gas station to get snacks and rolling us a blunt to smoke with him. There aren't enough diamonds in the world. When I worked for Dept of Homeland Security at Dulles Airport, I found a compromised area of the airport. So after getting approval from the higher ups who knew I was going to do this, what I did was I brought in a toy handgun. Then, in front of my supervisor, a bunch of screeners and a few bigwigs, I sat down on the floor against a wall in the non-secure side and nonchalantly took the toy gun from my backpack without them noticing me, and I slid the gun to the secure side of the airport. I slid it under a large gap in between a flight information sign. You know, they say delayed, on time, delayed etc. and the wall. We all got in line and went through the security checkpoint where I walked them around to the sign. I pointed to the ground and there lay the gun. The look on their faces was pure horror. They thanked me and thanked me. After that day I was promoted and they actually created a new position within SAR in every airport in the country due to me. This was back in 2002 when SAR was still new. But yeah, I was proud to have done my part. True story. I worked there for another couple years and then moved on. The easier way to do it would just be to go through SAR security. They wouldn't have found the gun either. Now, if you had a deadly pair of nail clippers you'd be held for questioning for 3 hours, so don't do that. Urban exploration. I break into derelict buildings and adventure down disused sewers and things. I could travel the entire length of the town I live in underground. I sometimes used to use the route to get to work before a massive flood the other summer ruined that. I still urban explore, though. Love it. Also found out that local councils pay people to live in abandoned hospitals and schools in places so long as they keep it in good condition and keep out trespassers. Found that out when I was chased from a derelict school by some drunk wielding a plank of wood. Nearly crapped myself. Motorbike cop pulled up next to me and challenged me to a street race early one morning. Ended up racing at 120 miles per hour down the motorway with him. That's how they get you. I'll top 3 it. I got to compete in the Olympics a couple years ago. Took a trip to Monaco, ended up having dinner with the prince and princess. And this one was when I was a wee bit younger, but I got to go China and got the shot to train with Shaolin monks. I successfully counterfeited national currency and spent it regularly for almost a year, all before I graduated high school. Well, there's a big list of things under this category for me, but I'll go with one of my weirder things, how my fear of heights was accidentally cured. Before I started high school, I went to Devil's Lake, Wisconsin on Friday the 13th. I decided not to rock climb and found I had made a great personal decision that cured my fear of heights. One of the girls in the group I was camping with was attacked by rock spiders while rock climbing and got tangled up in the rope. She was the one girl in an entire all-female group, including myself, who had a phobia of spiders before that, so she screamed for the entire time she was attacked and the hours it took for someone to get her down. It ended up storming after we set up the tents later that day and went to bed that night too. So, I got to watch someone be attacked by spiders in real life on Friday the 13th, and I'll never be able to forget that screaming. I decided that day that my fear of heights was ridiculous since there's a lot more to fear in life. I'm now superstitious of Friday the 13th and I'm unwilling to ever go back to Devil's Lake, Wisconsin. Had a foursome with 2 twins and their friend. No, it wasn't as amazing as you would think. I also had a friend say out loud words I was reading in my head. When I asked why the frick he just said those words, he said I don't know, they just popped into my head. My husband and I do this all the time, the word thing, I mean. Had an orgy at a mansion that could double as a castle in the Hamptons with a couple rich old guys and a few gorgeous young women. Had a butler walking around with a tray with lines of coke and pre-rolled joints. Played beach volleyball naked with the girls as the sun rose. I was just at the right place at the right time, I guess. I made 12k off a penny stock with a 3k investment within a 4-month window. Quit my job and traveled for 3 months through SE Asia all at the age of 2021. I made this investment while traveling through New Zealand. When I was younger, me and 4 of my friends were really drunk and went to eat at one of those shady gangster restaurants at 3 AM. Table of 15 started beaking us and words were exchanged. They jumped us. We won the fight. Badly. Ended up chasing them out of the restaurant. Not me, but my dad. When he first came to America, it was in the 90s and cell phones weren't used back then. Korea has a time difference of around 12 hours, so he called his family around 5 AM, using a public payphone. There were some thugs that were hanging around in the area at the time, and they attempted to physically assault him, but he served in the South Korean military and his H2H training helped him fight off all of them. I never asked how many he fought, but I'm guessing several of them. He didn't have any weapons, which made it even more impressive. He said that he never went outside that early ever again in that part of town. Got lost at festival for about 12 hours. Literally could not find my tent. I got out of it in the dark to wee and had nothing with me. I'm naturally bad at direction, but there were so many tents the same. Wandered for about 12 hours, finally found my friends and they thought I hooked up. Wouldn't believe I just wandered for 12 hours. I was dehydrated and so exhausted. I was dazing out into another world in 2nd grade and my hand felt an instinct to twitch, flip the pencil I was holding into the air, and come back into my hand in the same position. Whilst I was still zoned out as frick and just staring at nowhere, the teacher stopped the lesson and exclaimed, "Skyvex 1, that was a cool magic trick, but don't do it again, okay?" I used to zone out so much in elementary because it was like sleeping and dreaming at the same time, but still awake. Dated both royalty, a countess, and the niece of a president. I'm a fairly regular dude, normal built, zero fancy bloodline or big industry heirloom. Simply have good manners and am not afraid approaching people. I even have factual, undeniable proof for both. Actually still dating the president's niece, and hope it stays that way. One time, in Wendy's, I was eating and Bill Murray walked up, grabbed a fry, ate it, and then said, "No one will believe you." I think I heard a story similar to this once. I bet he does this a lot. Put everything we own in storage. Put 2 relatively successful careers on hold. Broke a lease on an West Manhattan penthouse. And then traveled the world for 2 years straight. 36 countries across 5 continents. Scuba diving at some of the best dive sites in the world. And memories for a lifetime. People don't believe we would give up all we had. But we did and are far happier for it. So you are rich. Nelson Mandela stopped and talked to me. As a kid, accidentally asked the president of a Caribbean country for a water on a plane. I drove over 450 miles to visit my girlfriend of a little over 2 weeks to only see her 5 hours, then drove back all without my parents knowing. We were long distance at the time. I throw knives, and I've only done this once, but I've dodged many more since. I threw a knife, it hit the target wrong, and rebounded right at my face. I pulled an arrow, and caught the knife with the point sticking a few inches from my face. Looked like a bad butt, but no one saw it. Dated Monica Lewinsky, and just like a certain president, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, despite trying, may I add. One time this guy at work said it would be awesome if I stood on the back of his forklift while he did donuts. It started spinning so fast that I couldn't hold on any more than I flew off and my body slammed through a drywall sheet and I was unconscious for a half hour. I woke up during surgery, 2 times during 2 different surgeries. Anesthesiologists told me many times that it was impossible that I stopped to talk about it. I have flown helicopters, written 2 books, driven the now president around his home city and beaten my crons into remission. When I was 17 in my last year of midget level hockey, I was taking a face-off. When the referee dropped the puck, I took a random swipe at it and it took off from the dot towards the goalie's right and went right into the top corner of the net. Everyone was so surprised it happened and my teammates and I just shrugged and went to center ice for the next face-off. Not really that hard to believe, but when I tell some PPL they don't believe me. Hit a gopher hole on my dirt bike and was launched forward 10 feet off of it. Went into a handspring front flip and landed on my feet. Met and chatted casually with Scarlett Johansson and Cal Penn, my freshman year of college. They came to our campus campaigning for Obama in 2007. He was with them, of course. It was obscenely cold outside. The speech was being given outdoors at night in mid-November, and a friend of mine was in charge of organizing the event, so while they were waiting before it was going to happen, he took them somewhere inside out of the cold. I walked by where they were hanging out and sat down and talked with them. Biggest irony of this story is that my head was far in the sand when it came to movies, so I barely knew who ScarJo was. I decapitated a wasp with a post-it note once, and while calm as a samurai at that, certain individuals that were there that day will claim that it was an accidental consequence of me shrieking like a girl and frantically waving my hand at the thing. But these people are filthy liars and not to be trusted. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.